They say that in the 1930s, there was an evil dollmaker who lived at the edge of a village. He crafted his dolls to look just like the villagers, and some people even claimed that they saw their dead relatives in the glassy eyes of his creation staring back at them from the shelf. But then one day, he started making dolls that looked like famous Hollywood stars, and all of a sudden, the dolls began to kill those who made them. This is the terrifying story of the doll maker whose curse took over an entire village. But before we begin, I would appreciate if you could leave a like for more videos like this one. Also, stick around until the end of the video to hear the strange details about the origins of the doll maker's curse. You definitely don't want to miss this part. It all began with an old man who lived in a small cottage in the middle of nowhere. He was a lonely man, and he had no friends or family around him. All he had was his cat, which kept him company while he worked on his craft. The old man's name was Jacob, but everyone called him Stinky Jacob because of how bad he smelled. Apparently, he didn't bathe very often and was always covered in sawdust and splinters from his work as a carpenter. There were rumors in the village about what Stinky Jacob did in his hut. Some people said he made furniture, while others claimed he created toys. However, the truth was that Stinky Jacob made dolls, and these weren't any ordinary dolls. They were creepy, lifelike dolls that he made to look exactly like the villagers. He would go door to door selling his eerie creations, and he always made sure to give each one a personal touch so that it would resemble its new owner as much as possible. People were both fascinated and frightened by the dolls, but nobody could resist buying one. That is, until one day, when a traveling salesman came to the village and told everyone about the dangers of buying a doll from Stinky Jacob. He warned them that the dolls were cursed and would bring bad luck to anyone who bought one. Nobody listened to him. They thought the salesman was just trying to scare them off from doing business with Jacob so that he could take away his customers. However, after the salesman left, something strange began to happen. People started to die mysteriously, and each death was more bizarre than the last. First, there was Mrs. Hemlock, who died after choking on her own vomit. Then Mr. Henderson died after falling down the stairs. Next, little Timmy Horton passed away after being struck by lightning. Even the traveling salesman turned up dead, having apparently hung himself in his room. Everyone was terrified, and they soon realized that there was only one person who could be responsible for all these deaths: Stinky Jacob. Villagers gathered outside his house, ready to tear it down and kill him. But when they got closer, they realized that the hut was empty. There was no sign of Stinky Jacob anywhere, and even more terrifying, none of his dolls were in the hut either. It was like he had vanished into thin air. Over the years, many people forgot about the mysterious deaths and moved on with their lives. Others still couldn't shake off the feeling that they were being watched. And even to this day, people have reported seeing the ghostly figures of Stinky Jacob and his dolls wandering through the streets of the village. But here's where things get really creepy. After Stinky Jacob disappeared, another man showed up in the village. This man was also a doll maker, and he, too, made dolls that looked just like the villagers. However, unlike Stinky Jacob, this man didn't live in a hut. Instead, he set up shop in a small store right in the center of town, and instead of selling his dolls door to door, he put them on display in his store window. At first, people were hesitant to buy the dolls, but eventually curiosity got the better of them, and they started trickling in to make purchases. However, those who bought the dolls soon learned that they had made a terrible mistake. Just like Stinky Jacob's dolls, these dolls brought nothing but bad luck to their owners. People started dying again, and this time it was even worse than before. A farmer named Thomas Baker bought a doll for his daughter. The next day, she fell ill and died. A young woman named Elizabeth Croft bought a doll for her mother. The next day, her mother went crazy and had to be put in a mental hospital. A businessman named William Hart bought a doll for his wife. The next day, she gave birth to a stillborn baby. The entire village was plunged into chaos and fear, and they soon realized that the only way to stop the deaths was to destroy the dolls. However, by this time, it was too late. The curse had already spread throughout the village, and there was no turning back. As the years went by, more and more people died, and the village was soon reduced to a ghost town. Nowadays, visitors have reported hearing the sound of children's laughter echoing through the empty streets, as well as seeing the ghostly figures of the Dollmaker and his dolls wandering around the town. But who was the Dollmaker? Why did he make dolls that killed their owners? What was the origin of the curse? Well, according to legend, the Dollmaker wasn't always evil. In fact, he used to be a kind and gentle man who lived in a world full of joy and happiness. However, one day everything changed. The Dollmaker's son died in a tragic accident, and he was so devastated that he turned to dark magic to bring his son back to life. Unfortunately, the spell didn't work, and instead of bringing his son back, he created a curse that would bring death and destruction to everyone around him. But why dolls? Why did he choose to manifest his curse through dolls? Well, according to legend, the Dollmaker believed that dolls were the closest thing to human souls, and by putting his curse into the dolls, he could control the curse and make it do his bidding. He could also use the dolls to spy on the villagers and gather information about them, which allowed him to tailor the curse to each individual person. So when someone bought a doll, they weren't just buying a toy, they were inviting the curse into their home. And once the curse took hold, there was no escape. But the scariest part of the story is that it may not be over yet. Some people believe that the Dollmaker's curse is still out there, waiting to strike again, and all it takes is one person to unwittingly unleash it. Now, I don't know about you, but I definitely wouldn't want to mess with any cursed dolls. The idea of a Dollmaker who crafts creepy, lifelike dolls that bring bad luck to their owners is just too much for me. And the fact that the curse can be passed on through generations makes it even more terrifying. I hope that this story has taught us all to be careful of the things we bring into our homes. You never know what kind of curse they might be carrying. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe. I would also appreciate if you could leave a comment below with your thoughts on the story. I love reading your comments and responding to them whenever I can. Now, I'm gonna leave you with another scary story that you might enjoy. Until next time, stay safe and remember, some things are better left undisturbed.